Go through today. If you've got any questions at all, please do just interrupt and ask away. I live with teenagers. I'm used to being interrupted. If they're talking to me at all, that is. So yeah, do keep the questions coming, and as we go through, I'll answer any questions you've got. And then afterwards, obviously, I'll send you a copy of this recording. I'll also send you some links to our support pages and various other information, all of which you can also find directly through the application, and I'll show you that when we get there as well.
Brilliant.
So with that all being said, let me start by sharing my screen. And just before I really get into it, can I check you use System 1 currently, is that right?
Yeah, System 1.
Excellent.
Yep, I've got System 1 sorted. I've got Echo loaded and logged in, and I've had a bit of a play to get
Excellent.
so far.
Wonderful. So, yeah. That's always good to hear. And you use Lexacom 3 as well, don't you? This the digital dictation software that we use. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah, correct.
Excellent. Wonderful. So how have you found it so far? Any stumbling blocks or a nice smooth introduction so far?
It's been good. I've been able to get onto it. I've been able to do the like write out some bits and pieces.
Yep.
Which is good. And the bit for me, it was just, I know you can like add the read codes in and add all the values. It'll be good to sort of like really sort of hammer home that, and it'd be good as well to see if I'm all about trying to improve the speed of things. So if there are any way you could sort of talk through the shortcuts, etc.
Absolutely.
That'd be quite cool. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, the good news is I plan to cover all of that stuff already, so that's always good. Oh, am I freezing a bit for you? I'm not sure if that's my end or your end.
A little bit. Sorry.
That's all right. Do let me know if you can't. I was going to say, do let me know if I freeze, but you'll probably be frozen, so that might be harder.
Yep.
My internet seems to be okay from my end. Anyway, we'll push on. If it gets too bad, then we can always try something else. I might switch my camera off and see if that saves a bit of bandwidth to speed things up a little bit if we need to. In fact, yeah, I'll do that. And maybe pop back on in a bit if I can. So you should be able to see my screen here, and you can see I've got Echo launched at the top of the page. As you're already familiar, you can simply use your voice as a keyboard. Now, there are 3 ways of doing this to activate Echo and make it start listening. You can click within this circle, and you see the red lines dancing. That means it's listening. Oh, there we go. You can also use the microphone itself. So on the microphone that you've got there, obviously you've got that record button in the center. Just trying to load an image of it now. There it is. Yeah, so you can use this, hold this button down, and it will record everything you say and transcribe it for you. Or you can use the plus key on your keyboard. So on the right-hand side of your number pad, you can press to start and press to stop. So that's kind of a handy hands-free way of doing it, which I prefer over using the mouse, but whichever suits you best. Also with this microphone, a little bit later, I'm going to mention the F1, F2 and F3 buttons. So keep an eye out for that when we get there. So as you already know, this is an example of speech recognition using Lexacom Echo full stop. New line. You can just simply speak and the text appears on the screen full stop. New paragraph. You can use Echo to enter text anywhere you would normally use a keyboard full stop. So you could use this in Microsoft Word, for writing emails, directly into System 1, even for writing cheesy love songs full stop. There really is no limit. So as you can see, it can't make me any funnier, but it can copy my terrible jokes and everything else that I've said. Now, interesting, it's made a mistake here. It normally gets into System 1. Perfectly fine. There we go. But as you can see, if you do make a mistake, or if it does make a mistake, you can go back and correct it. It's fully editable text. So as I say, it doesn't normally make that mistake, but it's kind of handy that it did, because it was a good example for me to give. The other way that you can change things that I find really useful, and there's loads of different voice commands you can use, which I'll come to later, but one that I think is worth mentioning at this point, because I use it quite a lot. If you dictate a sentence, this is an example sentence, and you think, actually, I want to say that differently, or I want to change that, you can just say, delete that, and it will remove the last thing you've said. I find that really helpful. I'm sure you never make mistakes, so it won't be so useful for you, but that option's there. The internet seems to be working all right, so I'm going to pop my camera back on just because I think it's nicer for interaction, but if it goes a bit funny again, I'll just switch it off again. Yeah, so that delete that will remove the last thing you've said, which is kind of handy. Now, when I say the last thing you've said, you've probably already noticed from using it and from watching me that it delivers chunks of text in one go. Now, the reason it does that, Echo is what we call a contextual speech engine. So it's not just listening for a sound and guessing a word, it's listening for the context of that sentence before delivering it. So it's when you pause for more than 2 seconds, that's when it goes, okay, that's the end of a chunk, and it inserts that chunk of text at that point. It helps it to be more accurate. Things like understanding the difference between there, and there, for example, it can do much better. So it will be the last chunk that's appeared that it will delete when you say that. Now, the most important thing with any speech recognition software is the accuracy, right? You want it to be as accurate as it possibly can be. So there are a couple of things that are worth considering to make sure you get the best accuracy. One of those, one of the really obvious ones is how you hold the mic. I know I say it's obvious, but I do like to mention this because I've seen countless people holding it like down here, wondering why it's not working too well, or equally trying to eat the microphone. Don't do that, it doesn't taste good. So 5 to 10 centimeters is what we say is ideal. You should be able to get away with holding it a little bit further away, but 5 to 10 centimeters is ideal. And you'll notice I'm speaking over the mic rather than directly into it. And that's just to avoid those popping P sounds and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that's the number one thing. But the most common thing and the most important thing to get the best accuracy with Echo is to make sure your computer's listening to the right device. So much like the fun at the start of our Teams call, you'll know Windows isn't great at picking the right audio device. So do double check that it's got the right one. Click the cog and go into settings. And then from this drop down menu, you can select the right device. So if you are using one of these, it'll probably say RM on it, like mine does. If you're using a headset, it might say headset, etc. Just select the right device and click save. But sometimes if you sort of unplug and plug a device back in, Windows doesn't recognize it anymore, thinks it's a different device, and it sometimes defaults to using like the built-in microphone on your laptop, the quality of which is never good. So the sound quality and therefore the accuracy won't be reliable. So yeah, if the accuracy ever drops, just double check that before you do anything else. Okay. Oh, and the other thing with regards to accuracy, if there's a particular word or phrase that it doesn't seem to like, tell us about it and we'll fix it, right? We're really, really keen to get your vocabulary feedback. So this would typically be something like a new drug that hasn't been added to our system yet. So when a Zempic came out, when it first came out, it said Olympic instead of a Zempic. Kind of understandable because it didn't know the word. So if you do have something like that, I know you said the patient is complaining of a sore throat and it typed goat instead of throat, obviously it wouldn't do that, then just click on this little cog and hit the feedback option and it will bring up this little dialog box. Now remember I said it's contextual, so do give us the context here. So what was the whole phrase that you said? You know, the more context you can give, the better. So if you give us the full sentence, that's really useful. What did Echo write in response? And confirm the word that it got wrong and how it should be spelled. Hit the record button, record that saying, and then hit stop, and then send that across to us.
Brilliant. Yeah.
Now, just to manage your expectations here, the moment you click send, it doesn't instantly change. What happens is that feedback comes to a real human being. We actually sense check everything before feeding it into our system so that we can ensure the best accuracy and so that you can't slip in any of those naughty words, for example. I know what you're thinking. So yeah, please do use that feature and it won't change instantly, but we are really keen to keep things updated. Okay, that's the boring bit out of the way. Any questions about any of the basics before we go on to some of the more interesting stuff? Cool.
No,
so the next thing I like to cover then is the text snippets. I know you asked about this, and it can be a really useful way of saving time having those presets. So for example, if I say example snippet, here's one I made earlier, a whole paragraph of text can appear.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, and you can create any number of snippets you want, and they can be triggered by any command you want and have almost any text appear. I say almost, there's a character limit, 2,000 characters or something, I think. So it can be big chunks like that, or it can be little things like insert signature or company address or clinic address in your case, whatever it might be, and it can do that for you as well. So to get these set up, you click on this little cog up here, and under help, go to account administration. And all that actually does is launch a web page that looks like this. So this is, you can also get here by going to admin.lexacom.com. But rather than remember that, I think it's easier to just get to it from there. Now, if you've got that open in front of you, you're more than welcome to kind of follow along with me if you'd like to.
Yeah.
You don't need to, but you're more than welcome to if you'd like to. So you log in here using the same typing your password correctly using the same password as you do to log into Echo. And actually, I should have logged in under my demo account, so let me just log out and do that again so that it looks like yours looks, rather than seeing all the extra options that I have for managing accounts in the background. There we go. So yeah, this is what it should look like for you. Does that look about right? Only hopefully with your name instead of mine, unless something's gone very wrong.
Yeah.
Cool. So in the top left here, you'll see a section that says personal echo commands. Give that a click. And this is where you can create your text snippets. Obviously, yours will be blank to begin with because you haven't got any yet. So to add a new one, you click this plus button here. And then from the drop down, select text snippet. And then literally just give it a description. This is like the name of your snippet. So it doesn't make any difference to anything. It's just a label for your reference. And then in this box, you put the spoken phrase. So you'll see I've just filled that out using my voice. You can use the keyboard if you prefer, but I think using the voice that way you can see that it works well. We would recommend that you use a short phrase here. So that's why we say spoken phrase. Rather than a single word, give it a little bit of context. And again, that helps the accuracy out. And then when you're happy with the spoken phrase, you click Edit Snippet. And anything you type in this box will appear on the screen when you use the command you've just created, full stop. And again, I've just used I've just used my voice, but again, you can type and hit submit when you're done. So select text snippet, give it a name, give it the trigger, edit the text, and then click the tick to save it. You can add as many of these as you like. As I say, you can come back and edit them in the future with this little pencil icon. And when you're happy with all the changes that you've made, do remember to hit that submit button. Now, I would say the most common mistake people make here is forgetting that submit button. So do remember that, because obviously you're clicking everything up here. It's easy to forget about it. But if you don't click that, it won't save your changes and you'll need to start all over again. Once you've clicked that submit button, those snippets will then be available on any device that you log into. So they're all saved in the cloud. So you can log in at home, in the clinic, on a colleague's computer, anywhere you like, and it'll automatically have those same snippets available to you. But if you want to start using them right away, there is just one final step, which is to tell the software to check for updates. And you do that simply by holding down the button and saying, update commands. It will then make that little chirp noise, update commands. It's really quiet. Let me just turn my volume up and try that again. Update commands. Don't know. It normally sounds a lot louder than that, but it goes, ba-dum. I don't know if you can quite hear that. You could just hear it.
Ear of faith. Yeah, ear of faith, I would say.
There we go. But yeah, I mean, try it for yourself and you'll see it goes ba-dum in the background when you're done. And then you know that those snippets are ready to get started and you can use them right away. Any questions about the snippets?
With the snippets, is it purely text or can you use it for actions as well? Or
depends what you mean by actions, but I want to say yes. Let me just check what you mean first, though.
No, I was hoping that I could do something like I don't know. So like I could do one saying like add fit test, and then I could then use it to go pull up the pathology, select a certain bit, and then do it that way. If that makes sense.
You could do that, yes.
Ooh,
so
yay.
Yeah, so this is a little bit more complicated. It's kind of like the next level, but I'm sure you can do it. So basically, if you know or can find out the keyboard shortcut for those actions, you can create pretty much any sequence of actions. The only thing you can't do currently is combine the keyboard shortcuts and text snippets. So you'd need to do the keyboard shortcuts up to the point where you want the text snippet, then do the text snippet, and then obviously you can carry on with another voice command for afterwards. So what you would do when you add a new one, firstly, you probably want to specify what application. Because if you're doing this directly in System 1, it's going to be very different shortcuts to what you would use in another program. So select the application. Leave it as keyboard shortcut. Give it a description again, as before, and then the spoken phrase to trigger it. So I don't know, fit note or whatever it was. Then click Edit Shortcuts. Now, each row that you create will happen simultaneously, and then the rows will happen in order sequentially, right? So for example, if I did Control and V, that's going to paste. And then if I put a new row and Enter, that's going to give me a new line. So I could paste with a gap underneath for a daft example. But yeah, so if you know that actually in System 1, Control and F3 is going to give you the shortcut that you need to open up that relevant dialog box. And then you're going to need to press tab 3 times to get to the right box. And then you want to press enter. You could actually create that on here.
Awesome. I'm going to have so much fun. Yep.
Remembering that each line happens at the same time, and then subsequent lines create a sequence.
Yep. Gotcha.
And again, remember to save it, remember to hit submit, and then say update commands if you actually want it to start working. Have fun playing around with that. And if there are some that are sort of generic and therefore not specifically down to how you've set up your System 1, because I know in System 1 you can create your own keyboard shortcuts and things, of course. You knew that, right?
Yeah,
cool. So yeah, if there are any that are generic and don't require personalization, by all means let us know about them, and we can add them in and have them hardwired permanently in the software to make it easier for your colleagues and of course for other users as well. And actually we've got a dedicated email address, which is I can't type today, wishlist@lexacom.co.uk. I'll include this in the email that I send around afterwards. But yeah, any requests you've got on it would be great if your software did this. Let us know, and that can include like keyboard shortcuts. So if there is something that you can't get it to work through a sequence of keyboard shortcuts, but you know that there should be the functionality to do that somehow within System 1, let us know and we may be able to get something sorted for you. So I'm going to come to all the comprehension engine and the coding mode and things in a moment, but while we're talking about keyboard shortcuts and voice commands, I think it's probably worth I show you that there's a number that are already baked into the software before you go creating all your own, only to find that actually it's already there. So here I am in System 1. I've already got George Smith open here. So if I say start consultation, is that the right command? Yes, it is. It takes me straight to a new consultation. This is an example of speech recognition into System 1 full stop. So there are loads of different commands that I can use to navigate around System 1, like you've just seen a couple there. If I say, what can I say? This is the one worth remembering, because I could sit here and list them all and that'd be really boring training and I'm sure you'd forget half of them. But if you say, what can I say? Do you see how it's already highlighted System 1? And there's just a whole list of all of the different ones I can use here. So search patient, patient record, new letter, yeah, loads of different options here. You can also create your own, as I've shown you earlier, and they will show under, well, actually, yeah, if you've set them up for System 1, they'll show under System 1. So these are ones that I created for myself, for example, which have then become global ones that have been created for everyone, but they're showing up like that because I created them for me first. So yeah, what can I say? We'll bring up a whole list. And then there's also other software that you can use it in. So Outlook, for example, delete email, reply all, forward, it'll do all of that. And then global commands that you can use anywhere, press tab, press enter 5, it'll press it 5 times, all that kind of thing. And again, they're all listed here. So yeah, it's just what can I say that will bring up that list.
Brilliant.
So now we're here, I guess let's talk a little bit about coding and then I'll go back to the other comprehension engine modes. So have you already figured out that how to toggle between the modes and get into coding mode?
Oh, no, I haven't. That's
cool.
That was one bit. I couldn't suss it out. I was feeling a bit thick.
Oh, no, not at all. It's one of those things that when you know, it's very easy and straightforward to follow. But if you've never done it, then yeah. So all you need to use is the F2 button on the microphone.
Ah, okay, yeah.
Or the insert key on your keyboard, which is just by the delete button normally.
Yep, same.
Depending on your keyboard. Cool. So the first time you press it, you'll see this little blue stethoscope appear. This is what we call medical mode. So in medical mode, I can use medical shorthand. So I could say heart sounds normal, new line, and it's going to appear like so. Or prescribe paracetamol 4 times a day. It's going to put QDS, because we love those Latin abbreviations, don't you? What's the point in learning all that Latin if you're not going to show off with it, right? But also in medical mode are some standard clinical exams built in. So if I say chest exam normal, new line, abdominal exam normal, new line, cardiovascular exam normal, new line, and of course the one that takes the most typing, neurological exam normal, you'll see it fills in all the parts of those standard exams. And again, completely editable. If you don't percuss, you can delete that. It's absolutely fine. And you can create your own text snippets, of course, as you've already seen. If your text snippet is the same command as this, yours takes priority. So you can overwrite this to customize your own version if you like. So yeah, that's the medical mode. If I press the button again, it goes into patient mode. Patient mode will explain medical terminology. So for example, patient has a history of hypertension, full stop, new line. They are complaining of acute nausea and vomiting, and they are apyrexial. So you see, it just makes it really, oh, I'll try that again. Apyrexial. That's because I let go of the button before I'd finished speaking, which is a terrible, terrible thing to do, and I should know better. So yeah, you can see it just explains all of those terms, making it really easy. Now, it actually does that for live speech, as I've just done, but you can do it for pre-existing text as well. So if I repeat that roughly, the patient has a history of hypertension, they're complaining of acute nausea and vomiting, and they are apyrexial. I could actually highlight that text, and if I'm in patient mode, I can press the F3 button or Control and Insert, and it converts it as well for me. Just as simple as that. Now, the next time I press the F2 button, you'll see this tag appears. Now, this is what we call coding mode. So if I go back into system 1, this is how I can make that work. So any objective codes, any observations will automatically code. For example, blood pressure 120/80, pulse 90, oxygen saturation 89%, patient drinks 8 units of alcohol a week. I probably paused too long. Yeah, I did. Patient drinks 8 units of alcohol per week.
See, that's good.
Yeah, it's great, isn't it?
Yeah.
And we know that patient's probably lying as well. But you can see with the blood pressure, if I double click, it has taken that as a reading as well. So yeah, it's so much quicker, isn't it? And it's just easy. You just talk and it just does it. Now, that's fine for objective codes, right? What you wouldn't want is to just mention hypertension and suddenly it's coded a new diagnosis, right? It won't. So if I could say, you know, hypertension, type 2 diabetes, epilepsy, you name it, it's just going to type it unless I use a trigger word. So if I say SNOMED hypertension, then it's going to add the code. If I say SNOMED epilepsy medication review, continue on same medication, full stop, it recognizes what can be coded and what can't, codes it appropriately, and does all the magic work for you.
Fab.
It's good, right? Now, when
sorry, no, I was going to say, so when you're I'm just trying to think. So when you're doing your general consultation, do you find that clinicians, do they flick through the different modes, or are they mainly on, say, like the read code mode? Or
I would say it does vary from clinician to clinician. I know some who are very, very keen on making sure that patient notes, you know, with right to view, with patients being able to see their own notes, they want to do most of it in patient mode. I know others who really don't like that idea and they think it takes up too much space with all the explanations, and they tend to just do coding mode and stick to that. You can easily toggle between them as suits. You can also, remember, retroactively change things. So obviously you can't necessarily you can't easily like undo the coding. If you're in coding mode, you're in coding mode, so you can't like take it out of coding mode afterwards, if you like. But what you could do potentially is go through and do it all in coding mode, and then where there's bits that you think would benefit from an explanation for the patient, you could go into patient mode, highlight that bit, and press the F3 button to convert it. Obviously there's nothing there to convert, but you get the idea.
Yeah.
The other thing worth noting is in System 1, do you use flags? Do you flag problems, major and minor?
Yes.
You do.
So we do it. Cool. So major, minor. Yeah.
Cool. That's a pain in the butt, isn't it? Clicking the flag, finding the problem, all of that.
It's one bit. Our notes are poor because of that. I've tried to do some background ways, but if you're going to show me a magic way of doing it, then I'll forever be your friend.
Well, we're going to be friends forever, because all you need to do, let's say SNOMED epilepsy, for example. If I've already coded it, I can then simply say major problem, and it's going to promote it, or minor problem. And there you go, it's a minor problem. Now, we can still then need to double click on it if we want to select new or ongoing, or make any tweaks and changes we can still do. But still, doing that and then double clicking is way quicker than going through the whole rigmarole of finding it under the flag and all the other jazz. So there we go. Friends for life?
Yeah, friends for life. I'll take you on that one. Yep.
Excellent. I expect to see that in the feedback form. So yeah, that's how you do the coding mode. Really simple and straightforward. Any questions about the different modes or coding or anything else?
No, I think that's the key one. I've got
so one thing.
Sorry.
I was going to say one thing I want to quickly go back to, because I didn't mention it at the time because a different question came up and I got distracted. When you're using your text snippets or your keyboard controls, you need to leave a short pause, a 2-second pause before and after the command. And the reason for that is so that it recognizes it as a command. This is especially important for the text snippets. What you wouldn't want to do is be reading dictating a sentence and say something that would trigger a text snippet and suddenly have the wrong thing appear, right? So for example, if I say, I shared the following safety netting advice, new line, safety netting. Now, the first time I said safety netting, it just put it as part of a sentence, but the second time it gave me a text snippet that I'd created, and it's that pause that makes the difference. So if you are trying to use lots of keyboard shortcuts or text snippets, just give that little pause before you say the command so it knows that it's not part of a sentence for it to type. Just an important point I didn't want to forget and move past. Okay. So I'm just going to launch Lexacom 3 and I'll show you how it works with L3. But just before I do, while that's loading, I'll show you a couple of other key points to consider. So under this help menu here, so you click the cog and go to help, there is a get support section. That will launch this website, which takes you directly to our support section with how-to guides on everything I've already covered and more. So if you aren't sure about anything, you want to double check it, you can't be bothered to watch me waffling on in this video again, you can come here and find a simple how-to guide for most things, including how to use it with System 1, specifics on the comprehension engine, which is where the coding mode comes in. And on the right-hand side here, you've got a link to download our quick reference guide, handy little one-page A4 guide that summarizes everything in one place. That's just really easy to have there to refer back to when you're getting familiar with it. Now that Lexacom was launched, can you tell I'm used to taking a second to launch up? I can log in and show you how it works with Lexacom 3. I realize that we've actually only got a couple of minutes left. Are you okay if I continue and cover this part? Cool.
I've got another meeting after, but I've just warned them saying I'm just on this. So
okay, excellent. Sorry. I'm normally better at keeping to time.
No,
it's because you're too friendly, that's the problem. So you'll see the first thing that's happened when I try and launch the two together is I have this little box that's appeared that says Echo Live is currently in control. Click the button if you want to return to the Lexacom client. Can you tell that was written by a software engineer? Ignore what it says. Basically, just click that button to launch Lexacom 3 and it will. Now, the reason for that button will become clear in a moment when I come to it. Okay, so here's Lexacom 3. Is this how you normally use it? Looks roughly similar?
Yeah, roughly similar. Yep.
Cool. So all you need to do is click here within this notes box. Now, I'm sure you will have the patient information from System 1 automatically populated. So you may have a few lines of text here. Just leave a gap below that would be my suggestion. Make sure your cursor is active in the right place. And then when you hold the button, this is an example of digital dictation and speech recognition working together, full stop. New line. Dear consultant, comma, new paragraph. Thank you for agreeing to see this 86-year-old gentleman with a basal cell carcinoma on the left side of his nose. Whatever your dictation might be, it just takes it, no problem. Now, I've made that look really easy, right? And it is, but there's always a catch. There is one change you need to make in the settings in Lexacom to make this work. So you need to click on this little microphone icon here, and then go to the other tab, and I'll include a screenshot of this in the email that I send as well, and tick this box here, which says I want to hold the record button to record audio. I personally like to have the play button work in the same way, but it's the record button that's the important one. Make sure that is ticked and click save. Now, the reason for that, by default, I'm sure you're already familiar, you press the button and Lexacom starts, and you press it again and it stops.
Yep.
That right? Yep. Obviously, with Echo, you need to hold the button down. Having the same button try and do two different things at the same time, it's not going to work. So once you've changed that setting, you'll then need to hold the button for Lexacom to record, but it means that the two can work together, as you've seen. That one setting will make everything so much easier. Otherwise, it's really difficult trying to get them to work together. Now, the other thing to know at this point is how to toggle between them. Because if I've now finished this dictation, I can send it off. Great, that's fine. And I want to go ahead and now type some notes directly into System 1 or write a shopping list, whatever it is. I don't need to record that to send to the secretary. What I wouldn't want to do is hold the button down to record Echo and find that it's also recording into Lexacom when I don't want it to. That'd be bad. So I can toggle between them using the F1 button on my control. So when I first press F1, Echo is muted. I joke that it's in man mode because men don't listen, right? So once it's muted, it's not paying any attention. If I then press F1 again, you'll see Lexacom disappears. We're returned to that silly box that we mentioned earlier. I can go ahead and use Echo, and it's not going to record anything into Lexacom, which is what we want. Now, when I want to go back to using it with Lexacom, don't just press the F1 button again, because although that will bring it back, you'll see Echo is muted. What you need to do is click that Return to Client button to relaunch Echo, and to relaunch Lexacom, and Echo will work with it. Now, the other thing that sometimes happens, this box can of course become hidden behind another window. If that happens, easy way to find it, click the Lexacom icon, click the box to bring it to the front, and then you can click the Return to Client button. And the final point, I sometimes see people end up with Lexacom looking like this. It's all grey and it looks like it's broken. You can't click on it. Don't worry, you haven't broken it. You just need to click that button. It'll come back to life and you can pick up where you left off.
Up.
There we go. So I know that sounds a little bit clunky. You'll soon get familiar with it. It's just the F1 button to change out of it, and then click the button on the box to go back to using the two together. There we go. Any other questions at all, or anything else I can cover and help you with?
No, I think that's been great for just in terms of getting me started, basically,
Yeah.
and then I can have a play for the next couple of weeks and then take it from there.
And if any questions come up once you're playing with it, you've got my email address. Just get in touch. I'm always happy to help. Just very quickly, the settings here, remember, select the right mic is the most important one.
Yeah.
That pause of 2 seconds, you can actually change to make it a bit shorter if you talk quite fast. And the buttons that you can use on the keyboard, if you wish to use keyboard buttons, you can actually change them to different buttons here as well.
Brilliant.
So just a very brief overview of that if you want to have a look at it.
No, that's great.
Cool.
Brilliant. Thank you, Duncan.
Thank you very
much
much for your
appreciated.
time. Really appreciate it. And I look forward to being lifelong friends.
I'll see you soon. Cheers.
All the best. Take care. Bye.